Hey, what's up, my fellow artistes? So, this video, I have taken the liberty of putting together another tutorial for you guys. This one specifically, we are drawing a spider, and it's kind of cool because unlike other tutorials that we've done, this one I felt was a really good one to showcase the side-by-side differences of implied lines versus defined lines. So that's something that we're gonna dive into. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Of course, we're gonna be using the three layered method in this one, where we're using soft, medium, and hard charcoals to build our tones, use defined lines and implied lines, use brushwork and smudger work to bring it all together. So let's sit down, let's relax, let's zen out, and let's get drawn. Okay, so for this one, we're going to be using a graphite pencil and a hoo-hoo eraser, a pentel click eraser, and a mono zero eraser. We're also going to be using a number 1, a number 2, and a number 3 smudger, a sandpaper strip. We're also going to be using soft, medium, and hard charcoal pencils. And last but not least, the brush. Okay, so with all outlines, we want to identify the main lines within the reference image. So in this case, that is the back leg of this black widow spider. And with all outlines, there are multiple ways that you can do them. Some people prefer to use the grid method so that they can nail their proportions from the very get-go. I'm a fan of the grid method in certain cases, especially for portrait drawing. I think that they are extremely essential. However, for this one, we're just going to be freehanding this outline. I find a lot of the times that if you practice with your sketchbook and you just bust out a bunch of different sketches, that will help solidify your muscle memory in drawing outlines. It'll boost your confidence, and it'll help you be able to draw outlines free-handed more often than not. That's what I do, but that's personal preference. That's something that you can decide to do or not do. That's completely up to you. Being that when you look at the reference image, there's going to be a lot of detail in the legs, so we want to make sure that we make our outline big enough so that when we lay down our charcoal, we'll have plenty of room to maneuver and manipulate the charcoal to give us our desired effect. But also keep in mind that the outline is not set in stone. Far from it, in fact. The outline is meant to be a guide, and it's there for you to start laying down charcoal. And if you find you need to change some things moving forward, that's totally fine. Okay. So now we're going to take our sandpaper strip here, and we're going to add some soft charcoal on there, as well as some medium charcoal. Okay, set that down. Now we're going to take our number 2 smudger, and we're going to very lightly apply some soft charcoal onto the first leg of this spider. One of the reasons why I'm using a smudger as opposed to just laying down charcoal with my pencil is because if you look at the reference image, this black widow's legs are extremely smooth. So you'll find that if you were to use a pencil on this shade work that we're doing here with the smudger, you'd find that the charcoal is very grainy, which isn't the end of the world. You could use a smudger to blend that out. You could use a brush to blend it as well. But I find that if you just skip that step and just apply it smoothly, then there's no need to go back and double work to smooth it out 2 steps from now. So what we're doing is we're just taking the smudger and we're laying down that initial layer of soft charcoal. And now what we're doing is we're taking the medium charcoal and we're layering that medium charcoal on top of the soft charcoal. This is a big part of the 3-layered method that we utilize on this channel. For those of you that don't know what the 3-layered method is, it's simply where we use a variety of soft, medium, and hard charcoals to blend on top of each other so that we can maximize the value scale in black to complete white space. So what we're doing here is we're just following the reference image, and we're following the contours of the spider legs that we have here. And we're just laying down that initial layer of soft charcoal. For the legs, we're building those tones. And now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a medium charcoal, and I'm going to lay down some defined lines. Of course, that's the big question when it comes to drawing, isn't it? Do you use defined lines or do you use implied lines? I'm a big proponent of defined lines. I think that if you use them in the right way, and if the aesthetic that you're going for suits it, they can be very powerful and make your image jump off of the paper. Implied lines, of course, are more like, if you actually look at the spider's leg that we're working on here, the defined line is the line that we just laid down with medium charcoal. Here's a defined line right here. That's defined. Now the implied line is if you look in the center of that leg, where there's the charcoal that we laid down with the smudger, and then there's the all white space. The eye, without knowing it, sees that tone break. That's a line, or what they call an implied line, as opposed to the defined line. The big argument with defined lines is they tend to look a little cartoony. I think they definitely can if they're overused. But if you use them as you need, and if the reference image, say in this case, calls for it, which I believe it does, it can definitely work for you. It's just something that you have to make that decision for yourself, and make sure that it ties into the aesthetic that you are going for whatever piece it is that you're working on specifically. Here what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take some defined lines, and I'm actually going to highlight some shadow work here on the joint of this spider's leg. Now what I'm doing is I'm taking a number 3 smudger, and I'm just going through and I'm very simply blending all of these tones that we laid down with the number 2 smudger originally. And this is just softening the overall look of the drawing, and it's tying everything together. Yes, that's really nice. And now what we're going to do is I'm going to take my brush. You guys know I love to use my brush on my drawings, and I'm just going to blend this all together. I'm hitting it extremely lightly, no more than half a dozen passes. And what this is doing is this is adding to the gradation between values that I have in my drawing. Now with this spider's leg, it's a little different than the one that we just worked on, because now what we're dealing with here is the end of this spider's leg is leaning towards the viewer. Now in order to sell the fact that this leg is leaning towards us, what we're going to do is we're going to leave a little white line break underneath the very top. See that? And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add some defined lines here. I'm going to solidify this leg and build some of these tones with the medium charcoal. You can either use medium charcoal on your smudger and build the tone, or you can go in, because I'm working very quickly here in this tutorial, and you can just build it up with a pencil. And then what we're going to do is, rather than blend it with the smudger, we're just going to hit it with the brush. We're going to blend it all together. What we're doing is we're taking the Mono Zero eraser and we're cleaning this up for any charcoal that got past the defined lines. We're dressing up any light values. And now as you can see here, seeing as how there's that white space, it makes the top of that leg look like it's leaning towards the viewer. Quick little trick that you can use. So now with this spider's leg, what we're doing is we're going through and we are just continuing to do the exact same thing that we did with the first two spider legs. And we're building up that tone with the soft charcoal. And we're sticking to the rounded contour, so because the viewer's eye will subconsciously pick that up, and so we want to make sure that we're doing the drawing justice and making sure that we make these legs look like they're rounded and look like they're three-dimensional. We're just defining this leg. That's the thing with spiders and bugs and snakes and whatnot, is you'll find that you'll use a lot more defined lines than you will implied lines. Of course, that depends mainly on the reference image that you're using, but most of the time, because the photos that you'll be referencing are so up close, it really makes for a lot of awesome detail work. And if detail is something that you're a little dicey on and you want to get better in practice, I definitely recommend reach out to photographers, see if you can use their reference image and draw insects. I mean, it sounds kind of funny, but because they have so much texture to them, it'll really open up doors for you in the wake of being able to practice different techniques and getting different details onto the paper. And that'll just do nothing but build up your own repertoire and make you a better artist as time goes on. But now what we're doing is we're just taking our smudger and we're blending this all together, and then of course we are finishing it off with the brush here, very lightly. And now here, this is a little tricky because we have two spider legs, the long one, and then we have this shorter one that's actually bent and in front of the longer leg in the back. So this is where we really want to focus on value within our tones. We have the abdomen, we have the long leg, and then we have that shorter leg. So I'm going to take my medium charcoal here and I'm going to put a defined line in right here. Yep, I'm just going to build this up. Nice, a nice, fat, heavy line. Now what this is going to do is this is going to bring that shorter leg forward for us. And then I have another trick where I'm going to lighten up the longer leg behind the shorter leg, and this will show you a nice break and it'll make it look like it goes short leg, long leg, abdomen. A lot of the times it's all about using the charcoal in the right way, just knowing subtle tricks that'll play to the viewer's eye and make your drawing look believable. So here we're going to take the Mono Zero eraser, and this is that trick. I'm just going to lighten this tone up. Boom, and that's it. And just like that, because we laid down that defined line on this short leg first, it brought it forward. We lightened up that longer leg, pushed it back, and now we're just going to blend it all together with our brush. Wonderful. So that's a neat little trick that you can do. So now, just like we've been building up the values and the tones on the spider legs, now we're going to be doing the exact same thing for the abdomen. Only difference here is because we're not working with something that's inherently rounded in nature, how we're going to be pushing the charcoal onto the paper is a little bit different. If you actually look at the reference image, the side of the abdomen has some coarse lines inside of it. So we want to make sure that we hold true to that with our values initially, because we're going to be going in with erasers, we're going to be going in with our medium charcoal pencil, and we're going to be adding defined lines throughout this abdomen, and that's just going to be playing to the overall texture of the spider. But here we're just building up those tones. Here is the bottom of the abdomen, which is inherently darker than the top. So what we want to do is we want to blend this all together. Of course, we have that defined line on that shorter leg, so we want to keep that in mind when we go through and actually lay down medium charcoal on top of the soft charcoal to really darken up the bottom of the abdomen. But here I'm going to take a medium charcoal pencil and I'm just going to go in and I'm going to dress up all of the dark shades that are on the spider's abdomen. Here's a neat little trick that you can do. You can add these little hashes onto the spider legs, and this again gives it that more rounded look. A lot of the times it's just very subtle changes within tone and value can make a world of difference for how something looks on the paper, whether it's flat or rounded or maybe triangular in nature. So keep that in mind. Here we're just building up the shadows, and then I'm going to very lightly add some texture here to the abdomen. And you can always blend this with smudgers, you can hit it with brushes. So just know that when you lay down that charcoal, just because it looks coarse and maybe not completely round like you want it, that doesn't mean it'll stay that way. Remember what I always say, the more tools you have to manipulate charcoal, the more effects you'll be able to get, and the more manipulation you'll be able to hit the charcoal with, which is always good. So here between these leg joints of the spider, there's a nice flat part of the body, so we'll just hit that with some medium charcoal. Now we're going to hit a defined line on the back of this abdomen. We'll leave a nice little tone break in between the spider leg and the abdomen, and we'll just darken the abdomen up. Then we'll go in with a smudger, we'll blend this all together, and then we'll hit it with a brush. Make sure we have some nice smooth gradation across all of this, and it'll tie it all together for us. And also bear in mind, when it comes to the brush work, the harder you push or the more you work it, the more the charcoal will blend and the smoother look you'll get. You'll also find that with this technique though, you're not going to have to hit charcoal that hard at all to get that nice blended look. Here we're just going in with the number 2 smudger and we're just dressing up the joints. We're laying down initial layers of tone as need be. And here on these front legs, we're just gonna take our smudger and we're gonna do the exact same thing that we did on the back legs. We're adding dark tone to the sides, all the while we're leaving the center nice and light, because we can build up a lighter tone with the brush, or we can do it with the smudger. Point is, we don't need to lay down charcoal because we want to make sure that we're maximizing on the value scale. We want to keep all white from the very get-go, and then we can add to complete black as we build our tones. But keeping that white, all white up front when it comes to these spider legs is absolutely essential. I mean, you can hit it with a Mono Zero eraser, worst case scenario, but then you risk overworking the paper if you don't keep that white space in mind from the very get-go. So just keep that in mind. So now we're just going to take the medium charcoal pencil, we're just going to build up these tones. And even though it looks grainy, don't worry about that. We're going to be hitting this with a smudger and a brush, and that'll soften it up and give us a really nice, appealing aesthetic that'll look really, really good when it's all said and done. Also bear in mind, guys, I'm going extremely fast in this tutorial. Most of the time, I would take days to draw this and just take my time, go very slowly, and to make sure that I was maximizing on every single technique that I enjoy using. But for the sake of this video, because I have to cover a huge array of what I do in a very short amount of time, this will just have to do. But now with these front legs, it's the exact same thing. And I hope here now you're starting to see that this isn't very complex. Once you understand principally how the 3-layered method works, you could start applying that method to a whole bunch of different drawings, whether it be spiders or
cars or whatever it is that you enjoy drawing. And you just lay down your tones, you lay down your defined lines, you decide how many defined lines you want to use, or whether you just want to use implied lines. I think that there's a nice balance between both of them. You can go 50% defined, 50% implied, and I think that for the most part, that'll always make a really nice drawing for you. But here we're just going through, we're hitting all this with a brush, dressing it up. Then I'm taking the medium charcoal. I'm going to put a defined line on this front leg of this Black Widow. Just going through and hitting all of this and dressing it up. And this is solidifying that front leg. And then rather than going in with a smudger, I'm simply going to dress this up with a medium charcoal pencil. And even though it looks grainy, when I hit it with the smudger and the brush, it'll soften it all up and give us a really, really nice look. A lot of the times, say on this front leg, if you really need to have a very sharp shadow or a very sharp blend, you probably don't want to use the brush, because the head of the brush is very big and it'll cover the entire leg. So rather than do that, what you'd want to use the tip of a smudger. That way you can still get a really nice blend. However, it's not going to darken up the entire leg. It'll just darken up that shadow that you need. So that's a little trick, something to keep in mind. Then here what we're doing is we're going through and we're laying down soft charcoal. Then we're going to define it with some medium charcoal. I'm just going to take my Pentel Click eraser actually here. A lot of charcoal's going everywhere. Get that cleaned up. And now I'm going to take my medium charcoal, and here come the defined lines. Boom. Yes. And this is one of the reasons why I wanted to do this drawing for you guys. I wanted you to see that the process that I use for one spider leg is the exact same process that I use for all the others. Okay, now I'm just going to take my brush, blend this all together. Now I'm going to take the Mono Zero eraser and do some detail work. So I'm going to make sure the tip of my eraser is clean. I'm just going to go through and I'm going to lighten up any areas that need to be lightened up. As you can see, I'm lightening up the center of these spider legs, and that's giving it a nice rounded look, and it's allowing me to be true to the reference image as far as what the shadows look like and the light source. And this right here is one of the reasons why charcoal is my favorite medium, because just because you lay charcoal down on something, that doesn't mean that that's it, that's the end result. It's very forgiving. You can go back in and you can just continue to build, continue to define, and it's not going to do anything but make your drawing better and better and better and more realistic. I've always said the more tools you got, the greater ability it gives you to manipulate your charcoal in a whole slew of ways and allow you to give it any kind of aesthetic that you want. And it also allows you to grow as an artist, because the more tools you have, the greater ability you have to manipulate your drawings. It's going to make it just look more realistic. And here what we're doing is we're going to take a hard charcoal and we're just adding on a very light detail layer. I'm just following the contours of charcoal and shades that I've already laid down. And it's okay to go over white space. Just make sure that you don't overwork the white space. Just hit it real quick, boom, maybe a couple passes is all you need. One of the reasons why I'm going from top to bottom and I'm rounding out these spider legs is because subconsciously the viewer's eye will see those tiny little hard charcoal lines. And because of that, it'll make a decision for the viewer that, oh wow, these lines are in fact round. And here you can hit the abdomen with a brush, you can hit it with a Montezuma eraser, you can keep dark tones, you can lighten it up. I'm just showing you guys all the different tricks that you can use to get different looks onto the spider's abdomen. Okay, so now the fun part. I'm gonna take our number 3 smudger, and we're going to let Spidey hang on his web. So here I'm just gonna, yes, put that on there, that looks good. Just the tip, I'm standing this smudger up on end real quick, just a nice quick pass. And let's see, we'll put that there, yes, okay. That way Spidey's not suspended in midair. He's clearly building his little web, his little home. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my hard charcoal. I'm gonna put in some defined lines on top of these implied lines that I just laid down with my smudger. That'll help solidify all these lines, and I'm gonna take my brush, I'm just gonna hit it real quick and smooth it out. So that's pretty much it for this one, guys. I hope that it was helpful for you. I hope you're able to pull something from it, and that is it. Voila.
So, yo, that is the process. Or should I say that's my process? It is by no means the only process. It's just one that I have identified and that I simply enjoy. So, if you're just starting out and, your drawings aren't quite to the level that you want them to be at, don't stress. Just remember that drawing should always be fun. And the moment that you're not having fun, just take a break. Walk away, maybe read a book or take a nap, and just come on back to it. Remember that we all had to start somewhere. So, in that good spirit, that is it. That is all I got for you guys this week. Now, remember, if you guys enjoyed this video and you find yourself enjoying all the videos that we make here at Messer Creations, you should definitely like and subscribe. Oh, and remember, when you subscribe, be sure to hit the bell. Ding! So you guys can be notified when our latest and our greatest videos come out. My name is Braden, and you guys have just been tipped off. I hope you guys had fun, and I will see you in the next one.